Hi everyone, I'm Mr. M and this is my PTA. Why PTA? Because I'm a parent, I'm a teacher, and I give advice. This week is part 2 of my interview with the fantastic Miss Emily Andrews, who is going to be telling us all about what happens when children arrive at reception and they're not potty trained. She's going to tell us exactly how reception teachers and all the staff at school prepare for the needs of every single child that they teach, and she's going to be sharing some actual in-class examples of exactly what happens during those first few important days of reception. I'm not going to talk any longer. Let's get to the interview. What are the levels of independence reception teachers are looking for in September, and how does a home visit help you address any potential needs?
At the home visit, I might be asking things like, does your child need any support with toileting, with putting their shoes on, with taking them off, taking their jumper off, washing their hands, things like that. Eating with a fork, that's such an important thing. I'll be asking those questions just as information for us so that we know, okay, I can take this information back to my team.
What happens if my child is still in nappies?
I've got 5 children who their parents hope for them to be toilet trained by the time they join school, but it hasn't happened yet, so there is a potential for them to need support with toileting. Whilst I actively encourage children and families to really work on this before they transition to school, I know realistically there are barriers to this happening. Obviously, changing nappies can mean that you're taking adults out of the ratio in the classroom, which may affect timetabling, fitting everything in.
It sounds like you're doing a lot behind the scenes. In year 6, you learn names and you carry on.
Obviously, for every child that's in the setting, we're willing to do whatever it takes to make sure that they're comfortable and they're safe. Really, my focus is knowing. I just want to know. There's no judgment involved. I just think it's really important that I know so that I can inform staff, okay, at lunchtime when we take them through, I know that you need to just keep a little eye out for this child who might need some help, because I would hate for a child to be sat in a situation, whether that's the lunch hall or the toilet or on the carpet, feeling uncomfortable and not being noticed by an adult. So again, that just feeds back into that relational approach. I'm highlighting to staff, just keep an extra awareness for this child who might find transitions a bit more of a struggle, or keep an eye out for this child who will need reminders to use the toilet or drink from their bottle every so often. Again, that's where that balance comes in especially that first month, when you've got baseline assessments to administer, you've got children that are settling into routines. It's really just about the adults in the room being able to assess the children that are in their space at all times and making sure that they are comfortable, making sure that you have a strong routine, so that is established from the very beginning. At our school, we have settling in visits in the summer term. I think every school in the country will do that. We are establishing a couple of routines initially, so in our classroom it'll be shaking the bells, so they know that that's a signal for a transition, and that is introduced to them from the very beginning and praised really heavily for them responding to that. Thank you so much for looking at me when I shook the bells. Thank you for waiting. When you hear those bells, you need to stop. Oh, I wonder who remembers those rules. So those are important key things are established from the second they walk through the door. And those are the things that you just need to hold on to and build from throughout the autumn term. Whilst we may be needing members of staff to be flexible because they are visiting the toilet to change nappies or to support with toileting for whatever reason that may take away from that part of the routine, you've still got those fundamental parts to come back to. At this time, we shake the bells, we come together on the carpet. When you hear me shake the bells, you stop and you listen. And I know that every school as well will have their own variation of class rules or behaviour policies that they introduce to the children, and that's where you really get their investment back in it, when you start to help them build the rules together to establish those oracy skills, to establish listening, things like that. Those are your basics. That's one of my very few expectations, is to make sure that those routines are very well established whilst you're still figuring out what routines may look like with toileting, with supporting independence, with building life skills.
How big a change will it actually be for my child?
I would hope that doesn't matter what setting that child is coming from, which earlier setting, which nursery, which childminder, there shouldn't be too much of a difference between that curriculum and the curriculum they're going to in reception. Yes, they will be expected to sit for maybe a longer period of time as the year goes on, and the expectations for coming to join an activity or sitting to do some writing or whatever that group activity may be, that those expectations are going to raise, but it's so gradual. I find that the children don't tend tend to notice that the expectations have been raised that much. I think the battle comes when you reach the end of reception and move into year one, and that again varies depending on the setting that your child attends as to whether they keep a very play-based learning approach to year one and sometimes year two, or whether it kind of transitions to a bit more formal learning, kind of sitting at your tables for longer periods of time.
And what does that look like in your personal experience?
At my school, at my setting, we tend to have 3 anchor points throughout the day, which are short learning inputs, one at the beginning of the day, one in the middle of the day, and then one just after lunch. Prior to this, they've had time to move, time to regulate, time to ready themselves for learning. And then we have a short, sharp, focused learning intention. Again, for those first few weeks, it may be, we're going to sing this nursery rhyme together and we're going to talk about it, or we're just going to have story time. Whatever just gets them used to building that routine of, okay, we've shaken the bells, we've come to the carpet, and we're going to sit and share something together for 5 minutes, and then that builds as the year goes on.
See, this is what impresses me about reception teachers. In year 6, the kids come in, we've got maybe an hour, 50 minutes for maths, say. They come in, we teach the lesson, there might be some one-to-one or small group sessions, but you have that defined space of time. They come in, they do the learning, they go out to play. How does that even happen when there's no structure, when it's all play-based?
That's where your relationships with those children really come into play, because you will know when they're ready to add one more transition into your routine, or a little bit more expectation that when they are ready. You'll also know when there are some children who they've reached their limit for sitting on the carpet, and actually maybe it's time for them to go to peel off and do something a bit more kind of sensory or play based. So you might have something called split inputs, where you all start together and then a couple of you peel off to another group, and you still have a core group of children that perhaps could be stretched or challenged. But again, I wouldn't expect those things to be in place right from the start. It may just be something that builds gradually. I think it's always a challenge. It doesn't matter what year group you work in, but to fit everything into your day so that you're making assessments towards the EYFS or the national curriculum, whichever year group you're in. It's a challenge. It is a challenge to fit everything in, and I think you'd get the same answer from any kind of professional working in a school at all. It's about having that autonomy, and I feel I'm quite lucky with the setting that I work in currently. It's about having that autonomy to go, okay, here are the things that I really need to cover this week, and here are the things that perhaps I can be a bit more creative about getting the answer to. So whether I can adapt something to be a bit more group-led, or I can take it outside for it to be a bit more creative rather than sitting together as a whole group, then that's what I might do.
And a lot of people want to know, for children with an EHCP or on the Special Educational Needs register, how do you ensure continuity of support strategies between the previous early years settings, a nursery or what have you, and your classroom?
This question really hits my forte as a reception teacher, but also as an inclusion leader as well. So something that I'm really keen to do, and I know that schools up and down the country will do the same, is to meet with parents whilst we're still transitioning. So if I know that a child has an education healthcare plan, or there is some sort of support plan in place, whether that's a provision map or an IEP, whatever the language is that is used, it's about having a positive working relationship with all of the feeder nurseries that come to your school. So I will gain permission from parents to speak to the setting, and I've never had the experience of being turned away from that. So parents always want, they always want what's best for their child. So they're more than happy for me to communicate with the nursery team to find out what we can put in place. I will ask then for copies of all paperwork that the nursery have that they're able to share to ensure transition is smooth. We're quite lucky that in Surrey, where I teach, we have something called early intervention funding, and from other settings this can fund members of staff coming to our settling in sessions in September. So that's something that we utilise quite often. I'm sure that there are other places where that is able to be offered as well. But I'm meeting with the parents before the start, wherever possible. I am communicating with as many different nurseries as I need to. I'm making sure that I have a record stored. I'm sharing this with the class teacher, with the support staff once they know that they're going to be working with that class. here are the ways to make sure that this child feels comfortable, and parents have a few opportunities to share as much information as possible. So yeah.
Okay, so that's you and the home visit, but what about in September in the classroom? What happens then?
Settings will generally have similar approaches to supporting children with specific learning needs, or general learning needs. One of the most common ones for us is speech, language and communication needs, whether that's because of an underlying neurodivergence, or whether it's due to speech errors or adverse childhood experiences, things that have happened in their past, to trauma, attachment, things like that. We will use a lot of the same approaches that every nursery up and down the country will use. So the first thing that we all offer in our classrooms is something called a total communication approach. So that is supporting all of our learners, whether they are speaking or non-speaking or pre-speaking. They're just learning a way to communicate, and that means that we are verbally giving instructions, verbally communicating. It means that we're using symbols as well. At our setting we use widget symbols, and they are consistent throughout the school from nursery to year 6. So I'm using visuals to support what I'm saying verbally. I will use Makaton as well, and we also have aided language display, so they help support children to build sentences. So we will always model without the expectation of the child responding, and then eventually when they feel a bit more comfortable, the idea is for all children to feel comfortable building sentences, to build their vocabulary, to comment on what they're playing with, or to express their wants and needs, or just to chat to us.
If a child starts to show signs of distress in the first few weeks, what is your immediate pedagogical approach approach hitting the school's behaviour policy? What would you do first?
As I've mentioned a few times kind of throughout this interview, building a relational approach is I believe the cornerstone of everything you're going to do across the year. So knowing the signs of distress before it reaches a critical stage are really important. If I'm noticing a child's change in behaviour, if they are withdrawing, if they're not wanting to separate from their parents, if they are becoming upset and staying upset for a significant period of time, my level of demand will back away. And obviously we're low demand at the beginning of the year, but it means that I'm sitting alongside, but not with the expectation that they need to speak to me or that I need to give them any instructions. It means knowing which adults are that child's trusted adults, even if that's not me as the class teacher, if it's another support member of staff, even if it's someone that doesn't work directly in our class all of the time, someone in the office or someone that's just a friendly face, then it's tapping into that resource.
Oh, that's great, thank you. And I guess I'm also wondering, as a reception teacher, what do you think is the most important thing you do in those first few weeks?
I'm using a relational and restorative approach. The second those children walk through that door, I'm building relationships with them. I'm commenting on what they're doing without the expectation they respond to me, but also if they choose to respond to me, I'm showing interest in it. I'm making eye contact, I'm modelling good eye contact to them. I'm complimenting them. I'm saying, I like the way that you're doing this, without it being personal to them. I like the way you're doing, you praise the thing that they're doing rather than the child itself, which is really important. Just trying to give a bit more of my time to that child, whether that looks like me just sitting alongside them whilst they're doing something, or whoever their trusted adult might be. It might not be their class teacher, it might be the office lady who walks through the classroom each day, or it might be a learning support assistant. It could be someone from a different classroom. I'm offering them time with their trusted adult every day, and that can look it can look like a game, it can look like a special responsibility, or it can just look like, I'm going to sit next to you, and when you're ready, I'm here for you. My language is lowered. I think that's a really, really key It's a really key thing for early years educators and as adults. Actually, we want to fix the problem. We don't want children to feel unhappy. We want to take that problem away from them, and children don't necessarily want that. You know, that's not how we build resilient children. That's not how we build that awareness of emotions, those social communication skills. They want us to be there to hold it for them, to hold it, to say it's okay to feel sad. I would feel sad too if this had happened to me. Just to acknowledge it. And when we acknowledge those emotions, we're telling that child, I'm here for you. I'm here for you. And it may not be the first time that you say that you get the response that you want, but 9 times out of 10, you know, gradually that child will open up and be able to kind of share with you something that has upset them or caused them distress.
Okay, really sorry. I have to interrupt there because time's getting on. More next week. Thank you so much. Well, there we have it, the wonderful Miss Emily Andrews again. And just like I told her, next week we'll be bringing this all to a close with probably another 10-minute one. I told you I had at least an hour of these. If any of this has been helpful for you, or if it's settled any burning questions you have, a like would be great, a subscribe would be even better, and share it with people. Go ahead, share it. I'm gonna go and edit this now. Yeah. Hopefully edit next week's as well. We'll see about that. Until next, for those of you who aren't here for reception-based news, don't panic. After next week, I've got a video coming up about what to do after the GCSE results have come in, what to do with all of those, good, bad, ugly, whatever. And then the week following that, I'm doing a bit of a deep dive into how fair the cultural references are when it comes to English literature in the education sphere. Yeah, I enjoyed that one. My wife had a good debate about it, so we'll see how that one goes. Obviously, all of this is subject to change because I'm nothing if not capricious. Yes, well, thank you very much for watching this far and listening to my bend bit there. I'll probably cut all of this. And yeah, remember, you can do this. You're awesome.